Well, I believe this is going to be the last turn of the game, primarily because yellow is going to, the farmer, the green actually, but he's going to try to trigger the end with that that last purchase, even if nobody wants it. It's worth victory points. It's worth buying for that very sake, I guess. It's not worth that many. We're talking $50 to buy it. So actually, it costs you victory points to buy this thing. But rather than let people who could gain something, I'm not sure who, but I think there are people who are gaining more at this point than he is, and he's pretty much devolved onto trying to purchase it. I guess everybody could make a calculation and see, hey, am I overall plus or minus compared to other people? That would be a real pain in the butt. And if everybody came up with a I'm not sure answer, taking the hit for buying this actually probably wouldn't happen. And then we end up in this situation where, well, it's not really worth buying a lot of these either. It's not worth filling the board. It's not worth filling the board with flags. The game would never end. And that's actually kind of my worry, is if they did calculate it all out, I wouldn't be as certain of wanting to end the game. Kind of disturbs me, because you do have to take a hit to buy this thing if you're not producing with it. If you're producing with it, you'll make some money additional. But in this case, the blue that would be required to fuel it up is more expensive than the white. It's just not worth it. It's one of the problems with, and nobody else has a block they can add it to easily either. So that token wouldn't sell. So then with these, well, one of them might here, and we might see some spreading here and here, and we might actually eventually pull it all out, but I don't want to play this that long. And because people aren't looking to buy new stuff, and because they think it's the end of the game, the black cubes, which have been tremendously valuable, nobody really wants them anymore. At least, I mean, he wants one, but he didn't have anything worthwhile to offer value-wise. So they ended up all being sold on the market and dumping another huge pile of cash here, which will further hurt him because he's not getting the income investment that he needs to get the blue and the food that he wants. Oh well. The economy's kind of taken this interesting twist. He's not willing to sell his food. Not unless he has something he really wants. So for example, white cubes. Well, he doesn't need them. He's planning on building a white factory. He doesn't need a white cube for that. He's not industrialized. No biggie to him. He's not willing to accept them as tender. You know, I mean, maybe it's some discount or something that makes him not worth it. He wants cash. And he wants cash at this level. Because, hey, the end of the game's coming, man. I got enough money to run things. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drive the price of food up and hoard it, because that's going to give me an additional edge. That's a real different feel from how the original game would have been, which is each person is selling a cube off at the end of the game. Now that would take an interminable amount of time, but here, goods become really valuable commodities at the end of the game, and you want to hoard. Ah, no, I was mistaken. This is going to drive down to this space if he sells them all, so he'll be getting, well, there is no price to the right here. So he's not getting the fair mark, but I'll say he'd get this price as the fair market price at 1.5, which isn't going to help much, because what you do is you divide the number of cubes in half that are being sold by all players, and that gives you the benchmark of what the value is. So you probably actually get more if you sell off early, but not by much. Well, continuing to spin around buying stuff, a couple of people, this guy said, the hell with it, I'm out of this. I'm just not interested. I can't get rid of this. I'd have to get another promissory note to get rid of it. I'd have to get another promissory note to do anything. I'm not going to produce, and the hell with your army. I have no chance anyway. But for other players, the militarization which has kind of escalated in the last couple of turns, it becomes worthless now. It really does. So the cost of building an army, don't worry about not building, because keeping one food in hand is enough to kind of keep this status quo in place here. But keeping but building an actual army, if that were to be done, what's the best you can pull off of it? And it looks like the best commodity is still the black ones, but they only sell at 20 bucks. So you'd need a blue and a red. Well, the purchase cost of the two of them come out to about 25. Now, granted, the sale price is less. You can definitely, the balance cost is also less. So, you know, you're probably not too far, but what if you get opposed? You know, this guy's probably going to use his army just because there's no harm to it. He doesn't lose anything for it. But that's going to cause a canceling out, and maybe red will end up gaining out of this because the black territory is the most valuable, whatever. But, yeah, it doesn't look like it's worth buying new armies, because whatever you gain from it isn't that valuable. And maybe if you're taking from someone who's clearly the leader. But the guy we all think is leading has such a significant, you can't hurt him much by taking away from him. You're taking a buck or two away. It's got to be one of the decent things to be worth it for there. I'm not so sure he is leading, though. I'm starting to favor this guy here in terms of position, and it's kind of strange because he didn't have one of those stronger positions at mid-game. It felt like he was one of the kind of second tier, and he's pushed his way up, I think, largely through militarism rather than anything else. But the consolidation and growth of the blues, and the fact that blues became very valuable, the fact that he had almost a dominance of the blue marker for a while, I think all these things kind of pushed him into a better position. Alright, well, we've slid through and we're moving into the development phase. One thing I have to say, in a game where it's hard to find the narrative as this, one can almost assume that it's not really the games that I like. When I can't really describe what's going on in a way that makes sense to me, when my own head is just, and this is really the problem with Die Macher as well, and so many other Euros, but not all. And I thought this one wouldn't be the case. But sadly, it has that. I'm just moving cubes on the board, you know. I don't know. It's really tough. And in some ways, some of the winsome design train games run me into the same kind of feeling where I don't feel like I'm hooked in. Now, maybe it's that I'm not giving these games enough detail to develop a narrative the way I did, say, with 1830. Or maybe these games just don't have a story under them. I don't know. Anyway, we'll be moving on to the develop phase, and then that's going to trigger the end, thank God. This is just painful to solo. I'm not sure I would enjoy it terribly opposed, but wow. And then we go to a final produce phase, and then a trading phase, where essentially everybody's just dumping the money. Hopefully I'll catch all that on one video. Alright, well, as I'm going through the production, I realize I'm cheating. First of all, I had set up to buy a bank for some reason instead of a white piece that I wanted to. That's very common for me when, you know, everything's just expressed in cubes, and it doesn't really link well into something, you know. The old, after the Holocaust, yeah, it takes 2 ore, and you have to have the productive capacity and everything. That requires a lot of planning too, but it was harder to kind of lose track of things, I think, on that, especially since it was on paper and everything. I'm constantly losing track in these games where all I got is little pieces of wood. That's just a personal problem. But then I also forgot the rule or I lost track of the rule. I want to build this here, and I'm doing it. It's not legitimate because I'm doing a forced build. I'm creating this double yellow and white space. Well, I'm just so sick of playing that that I don't want to let that get in the way. Now, I don't know. Should I just steal some money from him for that? No. Everybody wants out of this. The hell with it. We'll forget that rule in order to come to an end of this. Anyway, this guy didn't even build his military. He's looking at the values of it, and the cubes are worth more than the military. So I'm going to, at least if it is final production. If it wasn't going to be final production, if this screw-up was going to force me through another, you know, turn of this to try to get a black cube, well, yeah, I think I'd just walk away from the table at that point. Yeah, because to tell you the truth, no, but there's just not that much fun at this point. There's no advances or anything, and that's actually one of my problems with the whole thing. I think there's just not enough fun. It turns out to be a euro. All right, we'll go onward. Okay, so now we got the full production out there. Decent amount of reds here. He had to give up one of his blues over here. Full production in the blacks, whatever that's worth. The price has gone down significantly, so what we're looking at, a bunch of people are selling them, so we've got to figure out what the average costs are. It's going to be kind of an annoying situation, right? Taking something that's really easy, like the black pieces. Well, we got 3, 5 here. So that means, I guess 3 are sold or 2 or something. We turn down to here 1, 2, 3. It's going to be either 20 or 21 bucks because it goes to the midpoint. And then every black cube's worth that. So basically it's going to be spreadsheeted out. Less time consuming though than selling them out individually, certainly. And, you know, silly little choices that you'd make on the individual sales. This has to improve the game. Another big blast of these. Those are bonused because they're worth $1.50 each at this price, at this market price. So he definitely wanted to hold on to his food. Over here, well, he held on to just a whole bunch of blues there and some reds. We'll see where this all goes. Some people have promissory notes. His he's not going to be able to do anything about, but this one can be retired during that trading phase. Just so long as it doesn't make it to the end of the game, it doesn't penalize you. Alright, well, of course, it does cost 25 bucks, which could be the 3 victory points that you're losing for. But it's not going to be worse than that. Alright, I guess I'll figure out that final sale and come up with a piece of paper with all the values on it. Oh, crap. Well, I wasn't looking at the rules and started selling things off at the price off to the side rather than the sell price. They're supposed to actually be sold at the sell price under these new rules. At that halfway point, it was kind of weird because all players now sell all cubes of this type for the sell price in the well to the right. To the right of the one that they reached, not the little number to the right, whatever. There's probably an indication here. Yes, there is. So if one looked at the picture, they would understand it better. Of course, I don't look at pictures. Alright, well, I got to try to guesstimate how much money I handed out by mistake. I know this guy made a fortune on it, and, well, it's not like I didn't cheat anyway or make mistakes throughout the game. But it's always great when you totally screw up the ending, isn't it? Anyway, all that means is really all these grain, well, it means a lot of things. All the grains that this guy was sitting on are only worth $1 each, as are everyone else's. But it does really have more significant effect on some of the other commodities. The hordes of blues lost a couple of bucks compared to what I thought they were going to get. This lost a couple of bucks per. For the most part, it's not a huge effect, but it's to our friends here in Showa their advantage, because it means all the prices of the commodities are a little lower than I was expecting them to be, and that their huge landmass is worth more. Of course, this landmass is pretty big too, and that's where the problem is. Somebody else maintained their constant, close to their constant production rate, and I think this guy's got the game locked up because he's got a big wad. He had like $200 sell off easily. More than $200 off. $200. Well, he made 204 when I was cheating, minus 34, 170 off his blues alone. So over 200 bucks when you counted in the other stuff, though, I think. Anyway, big pile of money there. I'll come back with what the total ratings are. Well, I don't think any kind of tweaking would have had a lot to do with it. And, you know, money isn't that important. It's every 10 bucks that's worth of victory points. So, okay, that 34 bucks would have been 3 victory points. The way it turned out, these feds here had 40 bucks worth of money. That's, what did I count? I counted $20 bills, I think, that they had, right? That works out, right? And then on top of that, they had another 40 points, which was actually almost the largest in terms of landmass. These guys only had 44 points in landmass. So, growth-wise, they were at an even level. But money-wise, not at all. The farmers only had 30 bucks and some odd sitting on hand at the end of this. Just because this doesn't produce. Whereas the blues were producing a very valuable commodity that was consistently making them money later in the game, and then at the very end dumped at a fair price at 10 bucks a pop. Some of the others, well, actually Araz ended up coming in tied with Showa. Araz is this sort of, they started out as a labor force and went to banking. What did we have here? They had the promissory note they had to pay off, but not a lot of cash on hand afterwards, only 110 something, but a decent amount of territory there. And you can see they have a lot of territory, even if some of it's being squatted on, which of course was the other thing. He was stealing goods from other people because he was able to afford to have his military out. And on the last turn, it wasn't worth the cost of challenging someone's military occupation is too high. The 2 tokens, the blue and the red for it, were worth more than even the production in a black in terms of what it came out. Actually, that probably didn't turn out to be the case in the overall sellout, because the blue is worth 10, the red was worth 6, it's only 16 bucks. The black was probably selling around 18, so it would have been worth advancing into the black territories there. This guy had better be last, yeah. 23, but not, this kind of surprised me. The Anglians ended up at 27. They had a decent amount of cash, the third most cash, but no victory points basically for their 3 territories. And they were kind of, they got hosed over by other people very early. These guys hosed themselves over with some of their purchases in terms of, you know, I mean, look, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different technologies that they're running, or whatever, industries, however you want to put it. Anyway, that feels like it has too much of an effect. There's advantages to consolidation, but the game just doesn't feel like it represents what it claims it represents. I'm not saying that these aren't factors in it. For example, completely converting an economy into one resource probably should be overall a good thing if you can find a market. And there's an automatic market in there. But it's too good a thing in this. It's too expensive to diversify. And naturally, these markets arose diversified. I'll get into more of that in my review. But, yeah, I don't know how much I can take away from this. You know, I mean, obviously, I was just blundering around learning. But I'm not sure how much I'm going to want to play this, to tell you the truth. We'll see.